Hi everyone, Nick here. Now, the Serious Racing League kicks off again in a few days. I know you're all massively excited for that, but this season we've gone for real performance cars, and in order to organise that properly, we need to know which cars are fastest and which cars are slowest in order to give the right cars to the right people. So how do we do that? One way is looking at the career mode rankings. As you can see on here, you've got the top three cars, the Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, a bit clear of the others, midfield's quite bunched, and then Williams are Williamsing it up at the back, unfortunately. So that seems fair enough, and you can see it really well here. The top three are clear, but there's an obvious order. Then you've got Haas, McLaren and Racing Point really close together. Renault, Toro Rosso and Alfa Romeo really close together, a little bit further back. And then Williams, yeah, that's not gone well, has it? But I decided we couldn't just trust the game, because you can't trust this game. So I decided I was going to give them all a whirl in time trial mode. Of course, the question is, which track do we pick to perform this test? And of course, if we're doing testing, it's fairly obvious, isn't it? We have to go to the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, home of the Spanish Grand Prix. And of course, this should work quite nicely for the same reason that the real F1 cars are tested around this circuit, because it's a nice mixture of straights, higher speed, low speed, that kind of thing. And you can see my time trial time is a 1:17.809, 2,186th in the world. So I'm not amazing around here, not going to pretend otherwise, not going to be bothering any of those times at the top, but it gives you an idea what kind of benchmark that I am at. So adequate rather than world record setting. So how are we going to do this? So first off, we're going to do 5 laps in each car, starting with the fastest car according to career mode, which is Mercedes, and then working our way down to Williams. However, I did do an extra lap in the Mercedes to try and actually get a feel for the track, and I had to go back and do Haas again because my first run in the Haas was rubbish. I used the same setup in every single car. Maybe not that realistic, because some would have higher downforce, some lower downforce, but it kept the level playing field. And there were no restarts. I just wanted to do 5 laps, get in a flow with each car and set a time. And that's how it worked. So we went through all 10 cars. Let's have a look at them in reverse order, starting with the slowest. See if you can guess which car we're starting with. Yes, of course, it's unfortunately Williams, who were, unsurprisingly, the slowest car. Now, I haven't actually driven the Williams using realistic performance or anything like that in this game, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was half expecting it to be an absolute dog of a car to drive, to try and kill me at every possible opportunity, to be unstable or anything. But it's not that bad a car to drive from a handling perspective. It's just not any good. It's like if you took a Formula 1 car that was good and then just dialed it back to like 90% of actual capability, it's just very adequate and very just not a very good car. And through the long corners, it just lacks downforce, it lacks straight line speed. The last sector wasn't great, it doesn't stop very well, it just does everything sort of equally bad, which means it's felt quite balanced for a terrible car, so I wasn't overly unhappy driving it. I felt like I could push, but there was just no lap time there at all. And we're going to cross the line, and we did a 1:20.636, which is somewhat off the pace. Ouch. In 9th place, it's Racing Point or Force Endure, whatever the hell it's called. Now, this car, of course, as you can see, top right hand corner, is all about the straight line speed. It is not about the corners. This car felt awful through some of the corners. You can see there I've gone so far wide through turn 3, and that was me actually trying to stay on the track. It's a miracle that it didn't get invalidated. But yeah, it's the second fastest car in the straights behind the Ferrari, and it's probably the worst car round the corners. Anything even vaguely looking like a corner, this car does not like. Through here we were having to do a massive lift through that long right hand corner up the hill, and this final sector was just diabolical. So I think this car would be very good around Monza. It would be decent around Azerbaijan, and it would be awful anywhere else. I mean, still better than a Williams anywhere else, but it's not a good car unless you want to drive straight. So we did a 119.971. That's just under 7/10 faster than the Williams, but still over 2 seconds off my personal best. So not very good racing point. In 8th place, it's the Toro Rosso. Now, when I first got into this car, virtually at least, I was hoping it was going to be like a mini Red Bull. You know, they're obviously tied up, they've got the Honda engines, but it wasn't. It didn't feel great round the corners. It wasn't bad, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as a Racing Point or anything like that, but it definitely lacked some grip, and you could feel it wasn't a front running car, and you kind of guessed why. It was ranked by the career mode. I think it was 8th, so yeah, not particularly good. It's not bad though. I felt comfortable in the car. Maybe a tweak of the setup might help. Maybe knock a little bit of wing off or something like that to help down the straights, because it didn't feel bad through the corners. You can see I'm locking up a lot because, I don't know, it just seemed to have a little bit of a problem with that. So again, maybe you just blip something on the brake bias or pressure or something like that. But it was okay. I've driven better cars, obviously 7 better cars, but yeah, Toro Rosso, not terrible. And it crosses the line in a 119.517, so that's another few tenths faster than Racing Point, but still some way off the pace. In 7th, it's the Alfa Romeo. Now, I was pleasantly surprised because according to the rankings, I think this was 9th, but it felt kind of like a budget Ferrari, which kind of makes sense. It was decent down the straights, it wasn't amazing through the corners, a little bit understeery, but I thought it felt really nice for a backmarker or mid to lower backmarker car anyway. And again, it was one that I felt happy with balance of, just out of a box, or at least with my setup on it anyway. And yeah, it seemed like a decent car. I felt like I could push, and I wouldn't have any problem driving this car in a career mode or something like that. It felt quite nice. It looks quite nice as well, which is of course the most important thing when you're picking a career mode car. And yeah, it did okay down the straights, it did okay through here. It didn't have the most amount of downforce. I've driven better cars than it, but it seemed pretty decent. So Alfa, decent job. One more corner to go, and we'll see how much it managed to beat the Toro Rosso by. It did a 119.508, which is only 9 thousandths faster than the Toro Rosso. It felt a lot quicker than that though, trust me. Okay, 6th place now, and it's the Renault. Obviously, it's not having an amazing time because of the Renault engine, despite its claims of 10 billion horsepower or whatever the hell it's supposed to have. And I don't know, I didn't really like this car. I drove the Renault in a previous realistic performance season that we did, and I thought it felt alright. It was down on power, but it felt okay through the corners. This feels not great through the corners. I feel like maybe it's a setup tweak away from being reasonable, but it wasn't my favourite car to drive of the set. It just felt very average. You know, some corners it understeered, exactly where you'd expect it to understeer. It's not a huge amount to say really. It's exactly where it is. It's sixth in the rankings. It's an average car. You're not really going to be troubling the higher places really, assuming there's someone competent in those cars. And we crossed the line to do a 119.270, so a few tenths faster than the cars we've already seen, but still 1.4, 1.5 off of my ultimate pace. Right, fifth place, it's Haas. Now, the first laps that I did in the Haas were awful. I didn't actually even manage to get out of a 120s, and I'm not sure whether that's just me having come to it. It's fourth on the list of cars that I drove, so I came from the, well, spoilers, but impeccably handling Red Bull into this less impeccably handling car, and I don't know whether I just failed to adjust to it, because it was, when I first drove it, Williams pace, but I went back and had another couple of laps because I felt that was probably an outlier, and it was, because I improved in it significantly. So thank me for that one, Haas, please. It's okay. It's okay down the straights. It's alright through the corners. Again, the Renault and the Haas, they're just very average midfield cars. They're solid. They don't seem to have any huge weaknesses like in previous games when you had, say, the McLaren in 2018, which was awfully slow. They're just reasonably all-round okay cars. Nothing really to write home about. So the Haas did it in 119.253, a fraction faster than the Renault. In fourth place, it's the McLaren. Now, I was really pleasantly surprised by this car. I thought it handled really, really nicely. Now, it does suffer slightly down the straight because of the Renault engine. It was already well over a tenth down before we actually got to turn one. But I thought, the handling wise, it was quite nice. It felt really balanced, and I really felt that I could properly attack some of these corners. I can actually go for a lap. I almost kind of actually enjoyed driving the car, which you could definitely not say for some of the other cars that I tried out in this test. It feels okay through the corners. It doesn't massively understeer. Through the longer corners, I mean, pretty much everything but the top cars struggle through some of those, and this seemed definitely the best of the rest through all of the sections. It felt pretty decent through the third sector as well. So all in all, I think the McLaren, it came fourth in my rankings, and I think it deserves that fourth place. I felt, for me, it was a bit of a step ahead of the rest, although, as you'll probably not be surprised to learn, still a step back from the top three. So the McLaren managed to do it in 119.046. I reckon I could have got into the 118s if I'd done a few more laps on it, but we're doing 5 laps only for each car, so them's the rules. Don't at me. But yeah, decent. I wouldn't mind driving this car in the league. Right, so we get to the top 3, and in third place it's the Red Bull. Now I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to say here. It's not amazing down the straights, so as we brake for turn 1, we're already getting on for 2 tenths down on our previous personal best. It is obviously really nice through the corners, and I'm not entirely sure that I took advantage of that, because it's just so much better through the corners than some of the other cars that I probably braked a little bit earlier than I needed to, because I didn't really utilise the downforce. Plus, if I was actually driving this car in an actual race, I'd probably knock a little bit of wing off because it's got the downforce to balance that out, and then it'll give me a little bit extra speed down the straights, and then hopefully give me a little bit of lap time. Case in point, this final sector was miles better. Don't know if it was miles better time wise, but it definitely felt miles better than any other car in the Red Bull. So I would definitely put this as the best handling car, and it's definitely in with a shout at the top. So we did a 118.488 in the Red Bull. That's a massive step forward from the McLaren. Still a little bit off, but it's a decent time. So 2 cars left to go. Next car is the one that's lost the battle to be fastest. I'm sure you know what it's going to be. You didn't think this was going to be next, did you? Yes, the second for me was actually the Mercedes. Now, this is possibly because it was the first car that I drove, and by the time I'd done my laps in this car, I'd actually settled down and got a little bit better in the other cars. So there is possibly that. I also don't feel like I got a particularly clean lap in it, but what I will say is it was the most obviously well-balanced car. It went through the corners nicely. It was one of only 2 cars that was able to actually go through most of turn 3 flat and handled some of the other longer corners, like the right-hander we're approaching now, pretty easily. And it's pretty good down the straights as well with the Mercedes engine and decent straight line speed. So in terms of the best all-rounder, definitely, no question, it's this car. I imagine this car will be excellent in pretty much any track. It'll be good round Monaco, it'll be good round Monza. Whoever gets the honour of driving it in the league will have a very good time, assuming they're not just crashing it into a wall, obviously. So the Mercedes managed a 118.385. Again, a little bit off of my personal best, but a little bit faster than the Red Bull. So there's only one car left. The scientifically proven, definitively fastest car in F1 2019 is the Ferrari. And I didn't expect that to be the case when I first started this whole testing experience. I definitely didn't expect it when I started driving this car, because it's an absolute bullet down the straights, but it is not very good through the corners. I mean, you will have seen there through turn 3, massive understeer, sort of understeer that was worse than some of the midfield cars. Now, obviously, I think it doesn't help that it's already by that point going probably 10, 20, 30 miles an hour faster, because its straight line speed is just absolutely ridiculous. But in this case, the straight line speed was enough to make up for its deficiencies through the rest of the lap. And that means it's going to be quite an interesting one, because it could be the case that this is the slower car round the corners, but if it's able to just nail it down the straights, how are you going to stay ahead of it? It's just going to overtake you. So the Ferrari did a 118.328, which puts it just a little bit ahead of the Mercedes, but it gives it the number 1 place in my rankings. And of course, this is all based on me sitting down for an evening and then just ploughing through each of the cars. So you can see we've got the top 3 fairly evenly matched. You got the next 3, McLaren, Haas and Renault, fairly equal. Alpha, Toro Rosso and Racing Point, not too much difference. And then Williams stinking it up in 10th place. So Ferrari, the fastest car. Except, much like in 2019 winter testing, it's not. Because if we look at the optimal times that I set, with these taking all my best sectors, the Mercedes jumps into first place, a tenth faster than the Red Bull, and the Ferrari is back down in third. So, yeah, Ferrari there, getting done by Mercedes with a bit of unintentional sandbagging, I guess. Cheeky. Racing Point also improved when I used my optimal times to a 1:19.4 and snuck just ahead of Toro Rosso into 8th place. Other than that, no real changes. So what have we learnt here? Well, not really anything, I guess. I think the rankings that I've got are pretty much, give or take, some of those midfield cars that are very close anyway. Maybe swapping 1 or 2 places, and even then this is based on just time trial. We're not factoring in anything like tyre wear or fuel efficiency or EOS efficiency or amount of charge stored by the batteries and stuff like that. So although this is a decent test of actual raw speed, it's not a great test of all-round ability. So I don't know. It's still probably much like the career mode which I showed at the start. So I guess I've just wasted my time. Oh well. One thing that is good though is that after all of that I then went and did another couple of laps in the Mercedes and actually managed to improve my time to a 1:17.7 overall. So that's good. And the moral of the story is, if you want to improve your times in time trial, if you want to knock an extra 10th off, just do 50 laps in all the different cars. Then when you come back to it, the Mercedes will feel godlike and you'll absolutely smash it. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching and I hope you'd enjoyed it. If you did, then don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't already done so, then don't forget to subscribe. We've got to get to 100 subscribers soon. Got to do it. I can feel it's close. And let me know below in the comments what you made of it. Do you reckon I could have done anything to try and make it a fairer test or anything like that? And do you agree that the cars orderings that I've found is actually how they are? Are you a massive fan of Racing Point and think that should be up there rather than languishing at the bottom? Let me know in the comments. I'm sure someone has to be a fan of them. But until next time and the next video, goodbye.
That last lap was a 1:17.7.